I trust that you are continuing to thrive and to grow in your relationships. Now, effective communication is defined as the ability to effectively send a message and getting the response that is corresponding with what the message was meant to accomplish. When you are a couple that is communicating, how will effective communication look like? Number one, there will be no fighting, no shouting, because the message is getting across. The sender sends a message, and the message is sent through words, body language, tone of voice, and the receiver receives the message, and it is important for the receiver to give feedback. And so in couples communication, there must be feedback as part of the effectiveness of that communication. When there is no feedback, what happens? People begin to make assumptions. And when we begin to make assumptions, there is room to come up with what we call misunderstandings. And so it's important that the sender of the message is very clear about the message they are sending. The receiver of the message listens and gives feedback. So how do you listen? You listen by being able to give back what you are hearing. We call it reflecting back. So you might say, what I have heard you say is 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you clarify where you say, I didn't understand. Did you mean? And allow the other person to tell you what they meant if what you understood is not what you meant. The other thing that is important in effective communication is to be able, as the sender of the message, to again give feedback to the listener. So when they tell you, what I heard you say is 1, 2, 3, you want me to do this and that, and then you will say, yes, that's what I heard. Don't walk away. And then when the person does the wrong thing, or the thing you had not expected, then you come back and say, but I told you, and the other one says, no, you didn't say that, you said this. And when you look at it, again, it's misunderstanding. After you have listened, after you have sent the message the way it's supposed to be sent, you need to understand the process of communication. So you need to understand that after you send the message, you need to ask for feedback. Did you get what I did? Now, this is what we normally say in real life, everyday talking. People will ask you, you get it? Or they will say, you know what I mean? So that is a person who is trying to make sure that you are getting the message they are sending. This process is going to help us to be able to make sure that we are effectively communicating, and so there is no misunderstanding. The other thing is that you need to be interested in the person who is sending the message, because if you don't have interest, you're not going to clarify. You just wish for them to finish what they are saying so you can go to the next thing that you are interested in. And so how do you show interest in the person who is communicating with you? You tend to attend to the person. For instance, you might show body language that shows that you're interested and you're listening. So eye contact. There is also gesturing. We say okay. You are showing that you are engaging with the person, and also your body language. You are not looking away when somebody is talking to you. You are not doing something else while they are talking to you. Effective communication also is different for different age groups. If you are talking to a child, a toddler, you don't want to talk to them the same way you would talk to an adult. You need to go to their level. A lot of times it is best, especially if you want them to pay attention to you, to go back down to their level and be able to tell them what you need. And again, remember, I have said this before, be concrete, be precise. And be very specific with what you are asking them to do. And then once you do that, it is always good when you are communicating with children to ask them to tell you what they heard you say. Because if you don't do that, they may not understand you and you think they understood, and then there will be a fight because that communication process wasn't effective. Now, this is the other thing. Gender plays a big role in effective communication. When a woman begins to communicate, she is going to use a lot of words. When a man wants to communicate, he may not use as many words as a woman. And so it's important that we also understand that effective communication has to pay attention to gender roles. The other thing is cultural. You need to be able to understand that if you are a woman in some cultures and you talk with your hands too much, that it shows some disrespect or something. Those of us who can remember this growing up, and you had this eye contact with your parents, and they used to say, shame on you, how can you look at me like that, as if we are of the same age? So you also need to understand who your audience is, so that you adjust to what makes sense to them, so that they can listen to you and they are not being impacted negatively by these other things like the cultural differences or expectations of gender. And the children, sometimes they won't hear you because they are afraid, because you are yelling at them, or because you are standing over them and they are feeling intimidated. So that is why it's so important. I hope these tips here and there, they give you some opportunity to read more, for you to reach out, so that you can gain the skills that you need in order to effectively communicate in your relationships. Until I see you next time, you can leave a comment. You can let me know how I can support you. I will be glad to work with you as you develop effective relationship skills in the area of communication.